Okay. Thanks for interrupting our podcast.
Got
Okay,
him, dude.
here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Creative Office Podcast. We are back, and we are excited to be here. We have Caleb Phobes 2 weeks in a row.
Wow.
Wow.
What an honor.
It's such an honor. And we also have a Motion Church legend, Foursquare legend, Taylor Lindberg with us here.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Taylor.
Hi.
Yeah, this is so sick. Taylor's on the pod.
What'd you eat for breakfast?
I had a protein shake and one piece of sausage.
One
Nice.
piece. Did you
Long sausage or round?
Long.
Long.
Did you like just take out the single sausage from the fridge and put it on the?
I made one for Hank and one for me.
Wow.
Hank.
There was like two left in the package, and I pulled one out for him, and it was like, I like
Nice.
that one too.
Might as well.
And we just had lunch
I
at
did
a
have lunch.
very sketchy looking sushi place that ended up being really cool.
I didn't have lunch.
You didn't eat?
Not with you guys.
Oh, we invited you.
I had a turkey wrap.
You had a turkey wrap?
Yeah.
So you did have lunch.
I did have
He
lunch.
didn't have
I
lunch
just
with
didn't
us.
have lunch with you.
But we told him we're going to lunch
Sounds
with Tay.
healthier
Do you
than
want
what
to come
we
with?
I had a turkey wrap. There was one slice of turkey on it, one slice of cheese, and it was an
That
almond
does not sound.
flour
Who made it?
wrap. My wife made
Is
it.
this a normal
Jordan, we
occurrence for
appreciate
you? Guys?
you.
This
Is
is
this how you guys eat at home?
nope.
No.
Just how we eat at work.
Did
Yeah.
she make it?
We can move along. She made it this morning. for
I'm
me.
suddenly
Yes.
so interested in your personal eating life. but
Can we
yeah,
see the
move on.
sandwich?
It's
It's gone.
It was a wrap.
The wrap, can we see
a
it?
wrap.
It's
in my
gone.
stomach.
But if it's wrapped, then it's more than one layer. So technically one layer wrapped is still, I don't know.
Well, have you ever had an almond flour?
Yeah, my mom
Wrap?
buys them from Costco.
Yeah, they rip
Mhm.
really easily.
Yeah.
I didn't
so-
even know those existed.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of it. My mom will make like quesadillas with those.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mom. They're not great.
They're flaky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But anyways.
That's a great conversation.
This is our Costco reviews podcast. Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah. We actually changed.
4 out
But-
of 10.
4 out of 10.
I would say that's about right. Oh, darn it. Hold up. Sorry. All right. Well, Taylor, thanks for being here.
Yeah, dude.
This is awesome.
Thanks for having me.
For those who don't know, Taylor was here when the church was still Foursquare, right? You
Yeah,
were
I
here
left
for the motion merge.
I left like at the same time that they made that transition.
Yeah. But
That's why I left secretly. I said I can't get behind this name.
Yeah,
somehow.
Foursquare for life.
Yeah, for me that was it. When Foursquare died, so did I.
Nice. But yeah, man. So for those who don't know him, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do? That's how
Definitely.
you are.
Yes. Well, okay, yeah, sure. We can start that. I'm 6'5", and
Nice.
yeah. So I am the worship director at a church in Sumner called Calvary Community Church,
Nice.
and I've been there for 2 years this week actually. And
Oh, congrats, bro.
yeah, really exciting. And then before that, my wife and I were worship pastors at a church in Ballard called Ballard Church.
That's right.
And before that, we were here for about 10 years. And I had the pleasure of serving as the UG worship pastor at the time, as well as the South Campus worship pastor.
Split roll.
Yeah, split role, very unique. But yeah, killer. I'm married. I have the best wife in the world, Caroline, and then we have a son named Hank and
Shout
a
out, Hank.
daughter on the way.
Let's go.
So we're very excited. Yeah, we're loving life, getting ready for another little one, and
When's
Yeah,
the
man.
due date?
June something.
Nice.
Yeah.
June something.
Summer baby.
Yeah, it'll be really, really sweet. We're excited.
You could name her June.
We could, but we won't because I have a cat named June, and at this
You
point,
name
that
her
feels
Summer.
redundant.
My daughter's middle name is June.
Which is a great name. That's why we picked it for our cat. But
do
it's no shade. I love the
Do you have a
name.
name yet?
Yeah, we're gonna name her Stevie.
Nice.
Stevie.
Yeah.
That's a sick name. I'm not gonna lie.
Stevie.
I saw your wife post
Hank
something
and
on
Stevie.
Instagram, and I thought you were having a boy.
Because of Stevie.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's fair.
But Stevie is an awesome girl name.
Yeah, we're
That's
really
very,
excited.
very cool.
Stevie Nataro is gonna be her middle name.
Wow.
So
Where'd you
super
get
cool.
the name? I mean, this is off topic, but it's about you, so
Yeah.
it's on topic.
Well, we love the idea of like slightly unconventional names, but not for no reason. You know,
Mhm.
not trying to be weird for weird's sake. So Stevie was cool because its origin is Stephen, who is the first martyr in the scriptures, which is pretty cool. And in addition to that, Carol and I both being people who are obsessed and love music, you can point to people like Stevie Nicks or Stevie Ray Vaughan. There's a little bit of that.
Stevie Wonders.
Stevie Wonder, thank you. That's another incredible one. So there was some of that in there. And then Notaro is Caroline's grandma's maiden name.
That's cool.
There's some interesting family history with her family, but the short version is that her grandma, I never got a chance to meet her. She passed away a long time ago, but she was apparently a very incredible woman and lover of the Lord. And
wow.
So cool way to honor her.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think those family names are pretty dope.
Yeah, like Hank is named
it.
after my grandpa, who's Henry. So yeah.
See the one that you shared about that with his journal?
Yeah.
That was really, really cool. I saw that.
I
saw that. That was pretty dope.
Yeah, that day was weird, man. I just had like a little downtime, and my dad's been really cool about giving me and my brother some things that belong to my grandpa.
Yeah.
Over the years, and 'cause he's passed away 8 years ago or something. It's been a while, and I had this journal. I've barely looked through it because it's honest. I mean, honestly, if we're being real, his writing is kind of like mine. It's kind of hard to read, but it's like a huge book, like a 3-ring binder that's filled with notes that he took from listening to other people's sermons, notes for his sermons that he was going to preach.
Yeah.
And then just like slight like weird things, like I posted like this like a little newspaper clipping, advertising a Christmas Eve service that he was leading that had to have been like the 60s or 70s. So
Crazy.
Wow.
it was really sweet though to take that time, remember, but it's weird now being almost 33 and realizing how much I wish I was able to call him and say, hey, I'm thinking a lot about this thing, because he was in ministry forever. So, I'm processing this decision, or this just happened and I don't know how to deal with it. And it would be really cool to be able to call him and chat with him. And I'm grateful for the legacy. Grateful to.
Yeah, man, that's killer. That's fire. And it just shows you how far back your family has been believers and prayed for generation to generation, which I think it's sick.
I feel remarkably fortunate. Like both my parents were pastors, so there's a lot of legacy that I reap the benefits of, which is really cool, man. I don't take that for granted. It's really sweet. Really
it's awesome. It's great. Well, now that we know a little bit more about you, just kind of I wanted to talk about what you did here at Foursquare. You were in charge of UG and South, right? But what were some of the things that you did? I mean, I know you did a lot of stuff, but you guys did records, you did camps, you did conferences. Want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I started coming here when I was 17. A friend invited me to come check out high school service, and I grew up at a church in Tacoma, where my parents were the worship pastors. So I was very involved at that church. Yeah. And then got a call to come check out what was going on here, and was blown away by the youth ministry. Like I did not know that existed in this area. Like the youth group I grew up going to, we'd go to conferences and stuff, so I'd see like big level,
you would go,
like production and whatever, and see really incredible stuff. But then I'd go back to like my home youth group, which was like, 30 people in a portable, which again, you do what you can with what you got. It's no shade on that. But I don't think I understood that you could have like something kind of epic feeling on like a weekly basis. So when I walked in, and this was like way before there were even like lighting was not even really a consideration at this point. It was pretty, if my memory serves right, it was just kind of dark with like white lights on the stage. But the band sounded so good, and the music was like exciting, and there was like a lot of people there, which was also really foreign to me. And so I came in and was kind of blown away, and then I met that night I met, among a few other people, Bobby Walker, who people will know the name. Yeah, he's incredible. Who's still one of my great friends to this day. And he was like, you play music, you gotta come jam.
He's like, you gotta come jam.
Literally, he's like, and and he's at the time I think he was like 14,
Jeez.
or maybe 13, but he was young. And I was like, yeah, I mean, sure. In my mind, I'm like, I don't know if I can do that. I might go to this other church I'm involved there. I don't know. Anyway, over time, I actually ran into Bobby at a musicians conference that still happens now, called the Christian Musician Summit in Seattle. And he heard me playing guitar like at one of the booths just like testing something out, And he's like, dude, you got to come play. And I was like, I mean, yeah, sure, just embarrassed, like, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
And so he introduced me to Luke Brent Van Grohl
Nice.
after FHS one night, and Luke, being a good worship pastor and a thoughtful one, wasn't like, oh yeah, man, hop in. He said, oh yeah, I have a group on Thursdays that meets. You can come audition at the group.
Nice.
I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense to me. So didn't send me any songs or anything, just said like, hey, bring your gear. So I walk in to the sanctuary here, and I notice on stage, it's like Luke and like 10 junior hires. And I was like, oh man, okay.
That's funny.
All right. So I set up my gear, and what's so funny is like among the people on that stage, those kids, you had Zach Bates.
Oh.
Crazy.
Zachary Bates, his brother, who was also involved here for a while. Brandon Mesta, another incredible young musician.
Yeah.
And I'll feel bad. There's probably were some other people there that maybe are still around, but those are the ones that I'm like, wow. And at the time, of course, I was like, who are these kids? But yeah, I played a little bit, and Luke came up to me afterwards. He was like, yeah, I think you should play with us.
Nice.
And so yeah, so I think I played at FHS the following week and started to get involved. And then I kind of balanced the church I grew up at and this church together for about, I think it was 2 or 3 years, which eventually was just really exhausting, to be honest.
Yeah.
Trying to manage like my own energy and output between 2 different churches was exhausting, and eventually came to a point where I knew I had to make a decision, and took a break from playing at both of them just to pray, and because it was heavy, because the church I grew up at, my family's there, a lot of my longtime friends were there, but I could sense that God was doing something here.
Sure.
And I really wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And so my thing was, okay, Lord, like ultimately I want to go where you want me. So let's figure this out. And relatively quickly, I felt like this is where I needed to go, and I'm grateful I got confirmation in my life from some leaders, including leaders at the church I was coming from, who were like, I think this is the right thing for you,
Oh, wow.
which was really sweet.
Yeah.
There was also some opposition, some pushback, which was uncomfortable. But yeah, from that point was here, and was volunteer for a long time. And then there was a sudden opening in the UG area to be the worship pastor after Luke had taken over as the worship pastor for the whole church. Someone else had filled that role, then they had to step out of that role, and he was like, hey, we'll get you in here temporarily. So just like, would you be down to fill the role for like 6 months? Because Luke had asked me before, like, would you ever want to be on staff? And to be honest with you, I was just really intimidated. Roger always intimidated me, and then at the time, Chad Veach was still the youth pastor, and I love both of them, but they both intimidated me, and the idea of working for them sounded stressful. So every time Luke would ask me, I'd always be like, yeah, I don't know if it's for me, man. Like, I'm just laid back, and that idea kind of stresses me out. And I had a job here a couple years before that, just like as a stipend worship pastor at a campus we used to have called the Summit campus, out kind of near Tacoma. And that was my first gig. That lasted about a year or two until they decided to close everything and then consolidate all their effort up at South Campus when they were building it.
Okay.
And so then I wasn't on staff again, and then I got this ask, and I was like, well, for 6 months, I can do that job.
Sure.
And I actually just joked about this with Luke yesterday, but after 6 months was up, I called him because I started feeling like awkward, like, hey, because I had told the boss, because I was kind of working here and another place.
Yeah.
And I told my other boss, like, hey, it's only for 6 months. So I'll need to be less available to you for 6 months so I can do this thing. And that boss, shout out, God bless him, was Brian Reynolds, because I used to work at Anthem Coffee.
Oh, cool.
And,
Shout out.
yeah, we love Brian. And he was like, yeah, he was very accommodating. But at that 6 month mark, I was like, I needed, some sort of update.
Yeah.
And Luke was like, don't say anything. Just like, I know it's supposed to be 6 months, but like everyone likes how it's going. Just like, if you're good with it, let's just leave it the way it is. Like just keep doing whatever we're doing. Like,
6 years later.
I mean, literally, yeah. So I was like, yeah,
Wow.
cool. I mean, it's whatever. So stayed in that role, kind of working part-time here and part-time at the coffee shop for a while. And then when Luke decided to move to California and, plant Zoe with Chad, we hired a guy named Alex Damari to come in and take Luke's job. And very quickly after Alex got hired, he sat me down and he was like, I want to bring you on full time. I want you to come work for us the whole way. In order for that to happen, we'd have to give you like another role on top of the UG role. how would you feel about being like a campus worship pastor, and then we can keep you in the UG role? And at the time, I think I was really torn, but ultimately I accepted, of course, and very grateful that I did. And then I was on staff, I guess, cumulatively for that stretch about 6 years, and stayed in that role really the whole time. The only exception would be there was a short stint where when West Campus was a thing in Tacoma, where Brandon Barcelona and I went to kind of go start that. And after, I don't remember what the catalyst was, but there was, after about 6 months or something, Roger was like, hey, I hope Tacoma's been cool, but like, we want you back at South Campus. So we're going to move you back to South Campus.
Right.
So I went back, and that's where I finished sort of my run here.
Run,
was UG and South Campus, which is great because I loved the campus pastors at South Campus deeply. I still do. And and then obviously loved working with the UG pastors, that whole team, Josh and Brandon and Jake. And at the time, Bree Hunter and David Massey, another guy who's a legend.
So many names.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
That's I love hearing
Taylor
all these
just
stories.
name dropping.
Oh, but I will say, sorry, to answer the question about what we did, I guess we very grateful. Like I know it was a long way to get back to that question.
I love this.
So in my time underneath, like working with Luke and stuff, even before I was on staff, we did make a handful of records, which were really, that was a lot of fun. And that was another thing that I just never did before.
Yeah.
I think I recorded a single that I wrote when I was 16 at a studio in a guy's basement.
Sounds like something you do when you're 16.
Yes. The youth group I was at, like, nobody else was writing songs, but I had this desire to write songs. And once I came up with one, and it was honestly, it'd be so rad if I had it so that
that would be cool.
we could like play it just so that people could hear how cringy it is. It was called Brand New, and it was of the time, certainly, like early 2000s, Anyway, awful. Did not sound good. Didn't feel good. I remember even listening to it at the time and knowing like this doesn't sound
You
good.
uploaded it and everything?
Definitely not. It was like before that was a thing,
Oh yeah.
Like I had like CDs made. But this was before you could like log into CD Baby and just
That's
like
true.
upload it to the whole world, which is now it's like anybody can upload anything everywhere.
You're right.
And so then when I came here, after I had started playing, after that interesting audition at the junior high group, Luke was like, hey, we're going to play a conference in a few months, and we're going to release an EP at that conference. Would you want to come play guitar on it? Absolutely. Like, this is like dreams coming true.
Yeah.
I've been playing guitar since I was 11. All I ever wanted to do is play guitar and make records. And so we went to a studio in Seattle. Super weird. Not the best experience. Well, anyone that was there will tell you it was super odd. The guys who ran the studio were like alt rock producers and engineers. So like everything that they did to our instruments sounded like alt rock. So like we were like diming half stacks to get like distortion sounds, which is just too much. And that record is still floating around in places. People will send me pictures of it. I think I found it on my car the other day.
Which record was that?
It's called By Faith Alone. This was the first one we ever did. It was a studio record, which generally I don't think translates worship the best. Not that there's anything wrong with them, but preference-wise. And so we did that, and we realized like this doesn't sound like us at all. And so going forward, we did another handful of live records. We did the Breakthrough record, All Things, The Earth Will Sing, and then that was the last record that Luke did with us. And then after Luke left, there was a pretty big break where we didn't do anything for a minute. And when Alex came on, he said, hey, I know that the UG has been the department in our church that's putting out records. Yeah. But I would love for us to start a culture where like our church is putting out records. And so would you be willing to sort of like table any plans you have for a youth project and like let's put all of our energy into a church project? Yeah. Sure. And then the truth is I was still so like nervous to get my feet into that arena because of the bar and the expectation that had been set by guys like Luke. I was very scared to like do the one that was the one I made. Yeah. So I was happy to say, yeah, let's do something else for a while. I don't have to think about it. And so we made a couple of records with Alex, and in that time, finally got to, ironically enough, I guess how history repeats itself. The first record I made as the UG worship pastor was a record called All Things, and that was a studio kind of EP vibe, like shorter, very produced. that would be like a whole nother conversation of like lessons I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
Not just in music, but in ministry by like trying to hold the project so tightly because I was so concerned about how it would be perceived.
Yeah.
Like I needed it to be impressive. I needed it to be good because I knew how good we had done things before. Yeah, and I didn't want my first one to be like, oh, that's cute, you know? But the thing is, when it came out, I had some really hard conversations. Alex, God bless him, came to me and was like, hey, and I hope this isn't oversharing, but he was like, Raj doesn't like the record. He doesn't think it sounds like the church.
This is after it released?
Yeah. Like when it came out, this is like the week it came out. And I'm like stoked and I'm like fingers crossed to hear like feedback, and he took me to lunch and he was like, he just doesn't love the record. But here's the thing. This is where I have to recognize this is gross stuff for me. I had at least partially intentionally tried to separate myself from some of what was going on because I wanted it to be like its own thing.
Got it.
And so there was some like, it's kind of an intense word, but like I think there was some rebellion in my production of that record. Okay. Because I just wanted it to be my thing, which again is it's like so prideful, so selfish. And at the time I just kept trying to justify it by saying I want it to be the best it can be. Mm-hmm. That's my thought. And I remember the record came out and I actually took a walk with Zach Bates later that week because at the time he was an intern on my team and we were walking and I'm like unpacking to him this lesson that I've just learned and being learned from me now, this was a bad decision. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I should not have approached this way. I can feel it. Like as much as my reaction, I want to be offended that they would say this. I know that they're right and I know that I messed up. Yeah. And so what was really sweet was a couple years later, we got to make another record, a live record called Heart and Soul. And that one, I just like flipped the whole thing on its head and was like, I'm not going to hold anything tightly on this record. Yeah. I'm going to involve all these people who I love and who care about this ministry. Everyone's going to have a voice in this and we're going to do our best to replicate what's happening in the rooms rather than like overproducing a desired outcome. Yeah. And that was really sweet, but it was also really odd. Because instead of like, we'd always done like recording nights, like everyone come out for one night, we'll do 12 songs and we'll put all those on a record. Mm-hmm. And for this one, I really badly wanted to record it at services. So we just did, I think we did 4 weeks in a row at our young adult service. We recorded like 3 or 4 songs and then took them all, overdubbed them, edited them, and put them together. So made them into one night. Yes, made them into one record. And it was really special. I think partially just for me, like in a redemption situation, just trying to redeem that first one. And what's funny is when I listened to the first one, I still really like how it sounds, but the heart of it was wrong. Yeah. And so I learned a lot in that. And then obviously we did a lot of conference stuff and openers and all that kind of stuff. And it's been cool to reflect afterwards now, after being gone for a while. When I was interviewing for my job at Calvary, they asked me like, what's the most important thing that you've done in ministry, the thing that's the most important to you that you've done in ministry? Because they were asking questions about records and conferences and all this stuff. Yeah. And I was like, honestly, it's not really any of that stuff. Mm-hmm. Like at the time, I was the most stoked about those things because those felt like huge impact and like even the like the instant gratification that we desire. Mm-hmm. Like that's how you get it. You make a record, the record comes out. Wow, like we made a record, Yeah. But the thing for me that I still to this day am so proud of, and so it still encourages me to think about is people. Like the ability to mentor people and to help them grow and discover what their assignment and their calling is, and then help them lean into that, and then watching them do it is like the coolest thing that I've ever been able to be a part of. And there's a ton of people I could point to. Even just that I had a small part in, right? Not at all that I'm responsible for where they're at, but getting to have a hand in watching guys like Zach grow up and look, I mean, he's a campus pastor now. He's smashing. And a lot of other guys who are all over the country now doing stuff. That is the coolest thing by far. The records were a ton of fun. I think I was actually talking to you about this yesterday. Like I learned more musically making records than I learned anywhere else ever. Just because you have to be so precise to not sound lame. Yeah, and, totally. We worked with a producer once named James Hurley, who we flew out to help us make a record, and he was brutal with me. Really? Like so nitpicky. And I remember
He's-
even looking
he's an
over at
OG.
Luke. He is.
He is.
He was he was with Hillsong for a long time and a couple other churches in California. Very talented engineer.
Yeah.
But I was really caught off guard by how he just everything I played.
So
He was like, you could do that better.
tone,
Yeah,
all the-
everything. I remember one time I was stringing my guitar, and he looked at how I was winding it, and he was like, "That's not how the pros do it." And I went, "What are you talking about?" He was an interesting guy.
Did he at least teach you how the pros do it?
He told me how, but the thing is, like, I mean, we're going off on a tangent, but like, there's a guy in Tacoma named Joe Riggio who's an OG.
Dude,
he's incredible. Builds guitars for
he's fire.
incredible people and has been working on my guitars forever.
Yeah.
I string my guitars the way he showed me how to string my guitars because I trust him. So when he told me, I was like, dude, you know what I'm talking about. But of course he did. Funny story, actually. Joe Riggio's basement was the basement where I recorded that song when I was 16.
Nice.
He used to run a studio before he was making guitars. Anyway, so yeah, I learned a lot in that context, being constantly critiqued.
Yeah.
Your timing's off.
Yeah.
Hey, at the end of that phrase, you're slowing down too much. Whatever. And so I became an infinitely better guitar player after we made that project. I think that was Breakthrough or All Things, one of those records. And it just, it was wild. And then what was funny was years later, sitting in the studio recording overdubs with guys like Tyler Hansen and other dudes who've come through here, and me now sitting in that seat and being
you're like, hey, that's not how the pros do it.
Yeah, literally, it's like having him play the same part like 100 times, trying to like nail his timing.
Yeah.
But the fruit of that was like from that point on, his playing had just become so much more precise.
Yep.
Because you have to. And then in a studio environment, you either step up or you realize it's not for you.
Yep, 100%.
And so learned a lot through those processes and was grateful to get to use even like the studio and that environment to help guys grow and become who they want to be.
Yeah, because I'm a huge believer on you can be a really good guitarist in a live setting, but you could be the crappiest studio guitarist, you know? So many people think it's the same thing. Dude, I don't have a lot of experience like you, but I have enough experience to where I can say, like, tracking drums in a studio is not the same thing as playing drums live.
Not. And drums is probably the most extreme example.
Yeah,
like there's like the famous story about like Ringo, the Beatles, like their drummer before Ringo could not play in the studio, so they dumped him.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's very real.
That's awesome. And a lot of it is just that mindset of there's always going to be somebody better than you, and that's something that I've said on the podcast before, but I'll share it with you is like that I had a humble moment in high school where I thought I was like the hottest drummer, the coolest guy in jazz band. And I would never I would memorize my sheet music, so I would never carry it. We went to a festival. There's always like a judge that judges you after you do your set. You go to a little studio, and he goes, "Where's your sheet music?" I'm like, "I don't need it. I memorized it." And he goes, "Then how do you know what you're playing?" And I go, "Because I memorized it." And then he told me to play this, and that way, and I didn't know how because I only memorized the like what I learned, like the song, and he like embarrassed me in front of everybody.
Yeah.
And my band teacher was like, just shook his head at me, and I was like, oh, it made me feel terrible.
Yeah.
So then he brought in another drummer, and he was like, "This is why you need music," and that guy crushed me. And I was like, "Oh, there's always gonna be somebody better than me," and that's just part of it. Like even in churches, like it's not a competition.
Yeah.
But that's also an awesome way for people like you. That guy wasn't trying to hurt your feelings. The guy that came in, like he was just like, you can be better.
Yep.
And that's just part of it. And I think Caleb Phobes is big on that with like, at least with me, he's like, oh yeah, you did good, but you can still do it a little better or have a better attitude about things or see it from a different perspective. And that's just the cool part about being able to talk to people and know people like you who have gone through everything. And maybe there's like a youth student that listens to the pod and they're like embarrassed that other people are better than them. But that's where we have to kind of use those people as like stepping stones, Okay, hey bro, how did you play that lick? How did you play this riff? How did you do that drum fill? Like that's just, we build each other up.
Yeah.
And I feel like I grew up in Hispanic church, and so a lot of it was competition. Like it was really easy for us to be like, nah, I can do that feel better. And then we do it and we would fight over it, but I think what I love about this community and this church is just the family that we are. It's like, hey, if you're struggling with this is how you do it. Instead of move, I got it. It's more like, let me instruct you on how to do it. And that's just the culture that has been established here. And so hearing you share that story is like, it's just really dope being able to listen to your upcoming and your upbringing. And it still blows my mind that you were at that audition with Zach Bates and like Brandon Mesta.
Yeah.
Incredible musicians.
It's wild.
Because I know. Was this like an after school thing?
Yeah, it was essentially like, so Luke had decided to, he wanted to find a way that he could like start training these kids
Yeah.
to be ready to play for like, big stuff or services, whatever that is. And so this was his way. He was like, he would pick a song or two and have everybody come in, and he'd say, all right, we're going to play the song over and over again for however long and just work on stuff. And so like Bobby would be there,
Yeah.
like helping the drummers learn the parts and stuff. And then Luke would kind of cover everything else. Ike was probably there too, Luke's brother. If I think back, he would have been there too, playing keys. And he was another guy who like Luke just like kind of showed the basics too, just so he could like get like, I think what Luke has said before is like they just needed somebody to play pads. They didn't have anybody, so he just showed Ike how to play like a handful of chords. Was like, just play pads. And now Ike is incredible and tours with United and does this whole thing. So anyway, that's I feel like I'm maybe being too name droppy. All that to say, it's just, it's wild to see like if you're diligent and you care and you put the work in. I have seen example after example of how doors will open if you're the guy that works hard and is consistent and like you have a good attitude and you love the Lord. I remember a good friend of mine, Tyler Carroll, saying, I remember he got a really cool gig and I asked him, how did you get that gig? Like, tell me about how that happened. And he's like, honestly, people just want good hangs around. Like, there's a million good musicians, but people want someone who they enjoy spending time with.
100%.
And in the church context, it's not the same, but it's very similar.
Yes.
Where like when people audition, sometimes you get a guy who's like a killer and like kind of like an awkward dude, and you're like, all right, I mean, cool, we'll kind of figure it out over time. I'm a really firm believer that like serving on the worship team is another form of discipleship. So I don't expect anybody to be a finished product when they come to us. But then you'll get somebody who comes in and they're like solid, but you just love being around them.
Yeah.
And you're like, I cannot wait for you to be on our team because like you will make us better just by being who you are.
Yeah.
And you'll bring life and you'll bring levity. And that in my role has become at least as valuable as someone being a good musician.
Yeah.
Is like, can I trust you that when you show up on a Saturday or a Sunday that you're going to have a good attitude, that you're going to be prepared, and that the culture that we're trying to create, you're only going to help elevate and add to. I'm not going to be worried about you like sucking the air out of the room, which if we've done this long enough, we all known people were like, when they show up, everyone's kind of like, oh man, like, hopefully today's a good day, not a bad day.
Totally.
So it's, I think being prepared, being consistent, but also just like be someone that like you'd want to spend time with. Like when you think about the people who like bring you life, be that person.
Yeah.
Like be encouraging, be kind, be courteous, know your parts so that the band can rely on you.
Exactly.
Like all those things.
In simple terms, you don't have to be the best, just be your best.
Hey,
Yeah.
there you go.
Write that down.
Be your best.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
It's true though. Cause
It's
again, I don't
so
expect
true.
anyone to be the best, but if you're putting the work in and if you're a good hang, it's easy.
Just nice person to have around, talkative. Yeah, no, that's great, man. I'll kind of change a little bit, but keep it the same way. Like you just have so much under your book. Like you have a lot of experience. For your team at Calvary, like it's not, I wouldn't say it's a different culture, but different churches have different culture, right? It's not, and it's not a bad thing. But what's kind of like the vision that you have cast for 2024 for your team or for your church as a whole?
Yeah.
Which I think could bring some inspiration or could bring some encouragement
totally
to our team,
Yeah. So for firstly, I'll say it. Our cultures are super different.
Yeah.
Not in like the core issues, obviously, but the peripheral things are definitely different.
Yeah.
I mean, Caleb made a great joke last night. Freaking roasted me, talking about. I won't say the joke because when you're trying to retell a joke, it's awful. But the gist of the joke was that our church doesn't clap, like Calvary doesn't clap. And that is a fair indictment. Our church tends to lean in a little heavier in the back end of the set than the front end, is how I'd say that. So our churches the culture is very different. Like we did praise last night, and I thought the roof was going to explode off of this place.
That was wild.
When we played it. So it's a very different thing. But all that to say, the word that, so like, I guess just for a little bit of context too, our creative team, in quotes, is made up of 3 directors. So there's me, I'm the worship director. We have another guy named Taylor Mosier, who is our creative director. And then we have another guy named Nick Tresco, who is our production director.
Love
And the
Nick.
three of us, he's a great dude.
Yeah.
And he's so good at his job.
So knowledgeable and just
He's a
Nick's
G.
great.
The three of us run that team together. So the three of us sit down and we kind of discuss like, okay, what's the emphasis for this year? And we did this a few weeks ago and kind of came to the conclusion, like the word we're going to go with is cultivate. And that's really just like the whole idea of like growing something. And we want to grow and cultivate, growth and health in our team, like in the people on our team, knowing that their growth will result in growth in the areas we want to grow in. So it's a lot of focusing on how do we develop people, which is a big thing for our church in general. Like one of our like sort of key focus points over the last couple of years has been these like, family, formation, and future, like the three things that we talk a lot about. And so like us leaning into this idea of formation this year. How do we help people grow, become more like Jesus?
Yeah.
And the fruit of that will, I think, get us to the places we want to go. So that's kind of the emphasis. Yeah.
That's fire.
Good stuff.
That's cool, man. I just I love being able to hear different churches, different vision that they have cast, different goals, expectations even, which I think are awesome because it makes somebody reflect on something. Like something, I haven't been to your church a lot. I've been to Calvary a couple times, but something that gets me is just Nick's like his tidiness. Like the way that he runs the ship makes me look like a fool. And I say it because I like accept it, like it's okay. Like room 10, right? It's like it's infamous for always being dirty.
Yeah.
Always being full of junk and cables everywhere. And every time I walk into that room and I see messy, I think if Nick were to walk in, he'd be like, this is garbage.
He would not be happy.
I always think of Nick. I don't know why. I've met Nick a couple times. He's great. But
well, it's because you picked up exactly his thing. And it's so funny, the word you even use, like tidy,
Yeah,
is like the word that I think about when I think about Nick. And I think that's a word that he uses often when we're like talking about the stage.
Yeah, it's not tidy.
He's like, I just tidied it up a little bit.
Yes.
And it's true. Like I'll set things up and they'll be fine for me. And then I'll come through an hour later and everything will be like,
yep.
The lines will be straight and perfect on stage.
The cables aren't over each other. Like
none.
I played once at Calvary. Taylor invited me, and I had supposedly wrapped my bass cable nice, me, right? And then he walked over and he's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna adjust real quick."
Yeah.
Unwrapped it, wrapped it up, Velcroed it.
Yep.
And then set it down, and it looked great.
Yep.
Like he even went to grab a little piece of Velcroed the cable, and I go, "Man, this guy's he's just got it."
He is.
Your backstage looks incredible.
It's
where all your cables are, like all that. Yeah, I accept it. It makes me look like a chump, but it's something to work at, It's just something that I use to reflect on myself. And it's just like, okay, I gotta be better. Yeah.
Well, okay, so Caleb, what is your guys' like emphasis for the year?
Yeah, we actually talked about it last
Sorry,
week
not to be redundant.
on the podcast. So Roger has this thing where he talks about baby dedications.
Okay.
You've probably heard this.
Maybe.
I don't even know.
Heart for
Oh, yes.
Oh, the things he prays
the
when
four
he,
things.
yes. Heart for your house.
Well, I think he says a love for his house,
Yeah.
a love for worship, a love for prayer, and
For his word, right?
a love for his word.
That all sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, and earlier in December, I was just thinking about our team, and this is a familiar phrase within church, but I just had this like a heart for, a heart for the house, a heart for blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So I kind of presented these like four things, and in a sense, I kind of ripped it off from Roger, but just established my own points within it. But it was a heart for the house, and just a longing to be in his presence, longing to be in his house, being a part of his church. A love for the word, just being people of the word, and whenever we communicate on stage, like we let our own words fall, and we speak his word. And shout out John Williams. Anytime that guy does a ministry time, he's just like last night.
Gosh.
Like right before service, I was like, hey, can you just set up the new song we're gonna do, wherever you go? And he's like, yeah. And then he set it up with like 17 scripture verses, just
That's
like
just from his heart,
from memory in his
Yeah.
heart, and it just encourages the congregation so much.
Yeah, I
It
love
edifies the body. So yeah, a heart for the word, a heart for prayer was a big one. And kind of the phrase I've been telling our teams is, as much as we pray is as far as we'll go. And I just felt like prayer will be like our vehicle of movement for this year.
It's like that Roger. I think that Roger used to say, he might still, but every success is a prayer success. It's something he used to say all the time.
Yeah.
So
I haven't heard that one, but that's
just goes to show, man.
It's good.
Time.
Yeah.
But yeah, just really emphasizing prayer, and if we want to do something, if we want to cultivate something this year, like we need to be in prayer. And then the last one was a heart for his presence, and I talked about how Moses, whenever he spent time with the Lord, his face would literally like radiate and shine, and the people were like scared of him. He had to wear a veil, and just like people can notice when you spend time with the Lord and spend time in His presence. And like kind of the charge for us was like, let's be people of His presence, and let's let people notice the glory of God, like the weight of God, right? Glory translated could be weight. Right. Can people sense the weight of God like on you? So those were the 4 things. And then Roger preaches Vision Weekend, and he preached the same thing. And I haven't even told him this yet, but yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like he preached these 4 foundations of our faith, and it was praise, prayer, the word, His house. So that's kind of our vision this year.
That's cool.
And just emphasizing our 6 pillars, which I think you discovered last night.
I did.
At First Wednesday: purity, passion, positivity, progression, priorities, and party. That's just what we want to live by. Yeah. On our team.
I love getting caught up with one of these. It's just fun because it reminds me that they're there. Because it's so easy to forget. It's on the wall.
It's easy. Yeah.
But I love when Caleb calls me up. He's like,
it's been so clutch.
Positivity, bro. And then he'll like point at it, and I'm like, oh, that's right. It's right there.
Yeah. Our culture, too, as we all know, at Motion is very young. So a lot of the people on our team are young, not married, So we really emphasize purity as the first one. Like if you're going to be on our team, like you got to have a pure heart. Like your mind's got to be pure. Your heart's got to be pure. Your language needs to be pure. Because we were floating around the idea of, passion being first. But then we were like, well, you can be passionate about the wrong things.
Exactly.
So let's have pure hearts. Like, who can ascend the hill of the Lord? Those with clean hands and pure hearts.
Dude.
Let's have pure hearts.
Yes.
And then we can be passionate about the right things.
I think about this all the time, dude. And I'm sure you guys have had similar experiences with this, because I think when you've been in ministry for any amount of time, you encounter it. But there are these people that you'll encounter when you do ministry for a while, who they come around, and I'm not like, they might be on team, maybe they're not on team. They're just around, like, them. And when you're in a service, like, they go in so passionate, so about it. But then over time, you just learn through experience or otherwise, there's no transformation in that person's life.
They're lazy.
They are,
they won't get out of bed.
The purity that you're talking about does not exist.
Yeah.
They are full of passion. They love being here. They love whatever the experience of being at church and being a part of these nights and these, whatever. It does something for them. That's true. And I think that not trying to bury them, but I think there is something in their spirit that resonates with those experiences. But there is no follow through. And so you'll see somebody who's been attending or been a part of these things, or even people who are like in levels of, like they're leaders or whatever, who've been in a role or been a part of something, even something as life-giving as what you guys do here for years. But then if you examine their personal lives, it's not just like stagnant, it's like bad. Because there's no transformation. It's all passion. It's all, this is the best thing ever. I give everything I have when I'm at the altar. But when I'm back to me, and I'm back to my relationships, and I'm back to these, whatever, it's my thing. I don't need to change it. Or maybe you do feel like you need to change it, but you're not doing anything about it.
The phrase that comes to mind is, they want to live on the mountain, but they don't want to fight in the valley.
Or this is another one a good buddy of mine said. This is not like I don't think he invented this by any means, but it's the idea of you want to live in the kingdom without submitting to the king. I was on a phone call with him. This was during COVID, 2020, right? everything is crazy.
Yeah.
And I remember calling him to discuss some of the more like sensitive things going on at the time. My friend Christian Dawson, who is Black and incredible pastor and worship leader. And I was like, hey, there's a lot of stuff in the world right now that feels super overwhelming on how to navigate, particularly in the area of like race and things and how we're supposed to approach this from a kingdom mindset. And I trust you as somebody who is like kingdom first always. Like, help me navigate and lead well in the midst of all this stuff. And he was like, man, I wish there was an easy answer, but the truth is people want the benefits of the kingdom without submission to the king.
Wow.
And I was like, I think that's kind of it, man.
That's good.
So man. I think about that a lot when I see people who have been around and been in church for a long time, and they're at everything and they're excited about everything and whatever. But like when you look at their life, there's just no formation. There's no transformation. The fruits of the Spirit are not evident. And if there's one thing that I have found myself more convicted about than anything in the last few years, is I can look at a lot of things in my life and say, wow, look at this. I feel like the Lord's really blessed this, or I must be in the right position because this is happening. But if I can point to any of the fruits of the Spirit and I am devoid of that, fruit, that's an issue.
Totally.
And it should be convicting to us.
Yeah.
Like, okay, maybe, maybe I've really cultivated kindness, but my self-control is bad.
Yeah.
Or, I'm really generous, but I'm not gentle with people or with, whatever. So
sure.
I think it's become like a point of reference for me, and it's so cute. Now I'll, every night before bed when I'm putting Hank down, I have him repeat all of the fruits of the Spirit back to me.
Come on.
And it's the cutest thing hearing him say that. But the truth is, so I mean this so genuinely as a dad. I'm like, there's nothing I want you to cultivate in your life more than this understanding of these principles.
Yeah.
These things that, and as a young person, I don't even think I really understood what that scripture was saying. Like, these are good things you should have.
Yep.
But fruit is grown. Fruit is a result.
Right.
So those things don't just show up. Those things are the result of a life lived in submission to and in tune with the Holy Spirit. And that is like, it's my greatest indicator now. Like, and I think that's something a lot of pastors at this church have said over the years is like, you got to look at the fruit of someone's life to know what's really going on.
Yeah.
Is the fruit of your life frustration, and the fruit of your life disappointment and anger or whatever, or is the fruit of your life, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, so on and forth. So I always encourage people, if you want markers for if you're growing, can you point to all the fruits of the Spirit and show me where you're growing in those areas?
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's incredible. We were listening to a teaching from Theos U.
I love them, by the way.
In our creative,
huge
in our
fan.
Creative meeting. And what's his name? Do you remember his name? He's a newer guy, so I don't remember his name.
It's his first video.
Yeah, and he was just saying, he was like, you can grow all these good things. He was like, but bad things grow too. Weeds grow,
Yeah.
And so sometimes we may think that we're growing the good things, when in reality, if we don't reflect, like you're saying, if we don't point to these things, then we're probably just growing the wrong stuff.
Yeah.
And that's not something that we want to.
No.
We want to carry, and especially as leaders. I mean, you don't even have to be a leader, but we're all leaders here, and that's just stuff we have to reflect on. And reality is, the truth hurts, but the truth will set you free. And so, if there's any encouragement to people listening, it's like, yes, it's easier said than done. It's just confess your sins. It's like, to some people, that's the last thing they want to do, right? They'd rather die than confess that they're in sin,
right?
But this is just a reminder that the Lord is merciful, and that the Lord is full of grace, full of love, and I don't know.
It's all about everything that we do should be pointed towards the formation of Christ in us. And I think you're right. It's really easy to get tripped up on contextually small things that stop us from allowing that formation to take place.
Yeah.
But there's no amount of passion or energy or even I guess expression of love that is a substitute for allowing Christ to be formed in you.
100%.
Which means doing the hard work of, like Eugene Peterson said, a long obedience in the same direction. Like, this is about the long game.
Yeah.
And in order to have a long obedience in the same direction, you have to be consistent. You have to be grounded, and you have to be cultivating those right things in your life, and ruthlessly removing the things that need to be gone.
Yeah. Pruning. Yep.
Ruthlessly.
Wow.
It's a good word.
This is good. On that note, just kidding. We're gonna kind of start landing the plane, but that was fire. I love this episode. Taylor and I went to lunch with Sky, and we were talking about, because I wrote on like a little talking point just about memories here. And you said you were talking with your wife. I bet a good memory is meeting your wife here.
Yeah, so that is actually something. Yeah, I guess I didn't lay out earlier, but Caroline and I met here like 15 years ago, kind of right after I started hanging around, and then we've been married. We'll be married for 7 years this year, and we've been together for about 10. So, there's a whole nother funny thing about us dating for 4 weeks and then breaking up and being broken up for 4 years and getting back together. That's a whole nother story with so many funny things attached to it. But there's a little tidbit, a little tease for you as far as our life goes. But yes, me and Caroline did meet here, and so a lot of our memories, I mean, just about all of my memories at this church, she's a part of them in some way. But yeah, there's been a lot of crazy stuff. One thing that came to mind, we were talking this morning, there was one Easter here. The theme was the bond of peace. And so the whole theme was 007 for Easter.
At the fair, or is this?
This is in this room.
Oh, okay.
And, I've never known Motion Church, or at the time, Foursquare Church, to go halfway on anything. So this was a full go. So during this like production piece.
Were you guys all dressed up in suits and stuff?
Fortunately, I was not. But we were seated in like an orchestra pit off the stage, because the entire stage had become a set piece for this like production of our version of like a Bond movie. So like I'm seated off stage with a handful of guys in the band, and at that time the Bond song for the most recent film was the Jack White and Beyonce. Not Beyonce. Anyway, Jack White had a Bond song for one of his movies one time, so he played that song. I forget the name of it. It was super fun to play, I will say that, from a musical angle. But what was happening in front of us was that there was like 6 guys who jumped off the balcony onto the ground. And then
as part of the performance.
Yes. Gotcha. And then like ran onto the stage to fight Roger, who was in a tuxedo like James Bond. And he did like a roundhouse kick on one of them and he fell back into the baptismal, and like a huge splash. It was on purpose. This was like a designed moment.
I was gonna say, why
it was like,
baptismal
that's why. It was an impact moment, right? Like here's Roger kicking a guy into the baptismal. And there was like this whole element of like Tina came on screen. He was like, Roger, you have to help me. They captured me. And he was like, I'm coming to get you, baby. And then like, so there's this whole like combat moment.
I could see Roger doing this today, but I can't see Tina doing that right now.
Like being a part of it.
Yeah.
It was really,
That's
it was
so funny.
remarkable. It was very unique.
Who was in charge of all of this?
Creatively, that would have been, I think that was still when Mark was in charge.
Nice.
Yeah.
The song is Another Way to Die. It's with Alicia Keys.
Alicia Keys. Yeah. There it is. Is a dope
2008.
Song. Oh yeah. So like maybe that could have been really early. I started showing up in 2008.
Yeah.
So that could have been. It just depends on what year it was we did that. But in any case, that would be a really funny one. I'll never forget that. Doing the Grinch for many years was kind of wild. As a Christmas production here, that was pretty crazy.
We were trying to do that this year. We were trying to do the Grinch 2024.
Yeah.
Big, like all out.
Yep.
We contacted Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
LLC. Roger did.
LLC.
To, we wanted to like promote it.
Yeah.
And like do it big. And they're like, we will come shut you down. if you use the Grinch, this is not public domain. So.
What's funny is I remember that being a threat in the years past, but I think they always just kind of pretended if no one knows about it, it'll be fine. Sounds like the threshold has been crossed.
The threshold's been crossed. Definitely. We're going big this year on our Christmas production. So we're changing themes over to It's a Wonderful Life.
Which will be cool, actually.
That'll be cool.
The Grinch is hard to pull off with any subtlety. The Grinch is all about being like over the top.
Yeah.
And it was wild. But it was fun. I remember having that Grinch costume running around. Me and Zach have a picture. Thankfully, no. Always in the band. Like, so because we do the music live,
Yeah.
So, played in the band. Zach Bates had a significant role. I think he was as the mayor's assistant. So he and I have a handful of pictures together where he's in like full Who makeup, and
That's funny.
those were really fun. There's probably a lot of stories to tell that would get me in trouble, so we'll keep those off the record for now, at least. That's like those will be like told when I'm in like my 50s,
Oh yeah.
But I would say overall, I'm just I maybe as a way of helping you land the plane and saying what needs to be said.
Sure.
So much of the reason I am who I am today is because of this church.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people who are here and people who were here and have since moved on. And I can't speak for everybody. I have never had the experience of working at a business or at a church. I've had the privilege to work at a handful of churches now for different reasons and different seasons. But I've never left any of them without learning things that I want to do and things that I do not want to do. And Foursquare is the same. I have a pile of things that will be a part of me for the rest of my life that I learned that I can't imagine operating without them. And then there are things where I'm like, hey, it works for them. It doesn't work for me.
Of course.
And I'm grateful for both of those things because I wouldn't know better about either of those categories without this place. And I'm very fortunate. I feel very grateful that I'm still invited back by Caleb, to come and do things once in a while. Especially, what we did last night, First Wednesday, having awesome. Luke here.
Yeah.
Luke and I were talking before.
Incredible.
He hadn't led worship on this stage in 10 years, since 2014 when he left. And so it was, having him here and Hans being here to run front of house. It was a very like sweet and surreal moment to do that. So all that to say, I'm very grateful and grateful that you would have me out to do this. And
of course,
grateful to be becoming better friends with both you guys.
Man.
Which is so funny because both you guys came around after I ever worked here. And so you're not carryover friendships. You are new and intentional friendships.
Yeah, you were just a name I heard through the halls and people say Taylor Lindberg, and then I don't remember how I met you, but I met you. I think you came to play one time.
Probably.
Yeah. Didn't I call you Tyler? Do you remember that? I think that's
right.
how we met. Yeah. I called you Tyler or something like that. I don't know.
But hey, it obviously didn't affect me too badly because you came and played something with me. So
yeah, that's awesome. But thanks for spending the time here.
Mm-hmm.
This was a really good one. I was just telling Caleb, it's just nice to sit down with people and talk. And we probably could have had this conversation on some other time, but just being able to do it in this setting where it can be a blessing to our people too.
Yep.
In our congregation as well. And
yep.
We didn't touch about it, but your podcast, you want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I would actually, it's funny because it brings to mind like the reason why I love the podcast that we're doing at Calvary is because I get an excuse. Because it can be tough is like sitting across from somebody in a normal context and just being like, tell me about yourself.
Yeah.
It can be a little bit uncomfortable, but when there's a purpose.
Sure.
It seems like it's much easier. And also, just selfishly, I feel licensed to ask more questions when we're sitting behind mics.
Yeah.
So I feel okay digging a little deeper rather than being like, all right, cool, thanks for, whatever. So anyway, so it's called the Calvary Creative Podcast. It was, the whole intention of it was, our team is big enough that anytime we have like a team night or a gathering, everybody's never able to be there at the same time.
Yeah.
And the hard part about that is, you put a lot of effort into communicating vision or culture or putting a lot of work into a teaching or whatever. But then a pretty significant amount of people, many of whom are like leaders, they miss all of that.
Yeah.
And that started to bum me out a little bit. I was like, it's kind of a bummer. Like some really key people on our team have not been a part of these really important nights where information that means a lot to me is not getting to them. Except by kind of like a secondhand, like, oh, we talked about this, but there's like the impact is kind of lost.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, okay, we'll still have the team nights and hope everyone comes. But what if there was another way that I could share my heart, could talk with people on our team about what's on their hearts, as well as like their stories. And that's been honestly like, we're 4 episodes deep, so it's really new. But the thing that has gotten the most good feedback by far has just been sitting across from people who serve on our team and saying, let's talk about how you got here, what made you who you are, what you care about, what are you struggling with right now, or what are you dealing with, what is God teaching you right now? And, one thing that I'm excited about just as a leader is that question is not asked enough. And I say that for multiple reasons. One, I mean, what's more encouraging than hearing someone tell you what God's doing in their life? Like, it just spurs you on. It puts wind in your sails to hear someone say, like, the Lord's doing this for me, or the Lord's really challenging me in this, and I'm feeling him, like, draw closer to me as I'm struggling through this thing. But we don't ask that. And the other side of that is, like, there should always be an answer to that question. to me, and I don't say this to sound rude or mean, but
Sure.
if you can't answer that question, what is the Lord teaching me or what is he doing me right now? Something is wrong. Because if as believers and as people who are journeying with Christ, that process should never stop.
Yep.
So if I can't point to something that the Lord is teaching me or growing in me or challenging me or trying to get out of me, I'm not growing. I'm not actively pursuing this relationship.
Yeah.
And I know, speaking selfishly as someone who's been in church forever, if more people had asked me that question on a regular basis, it really would have encouraged me to have an answer.
Wow.
Yeah.
But when no one's asking that question, I don't feel like I have to have an answer. So, and it's not to say that our motivation is just like, oh, I don't want to be embarrassed. But the truth is, like, because of how much I care about this and have cared about it for the last 21 years, being in and around ministry and worship ministry and all these things, I love it enough that if that was a thing that was happening, I would have invested a lot of time in making sure I had an answer to that question.
Wow.
And I think there's a lot of people who serve on our teams, your church, my church, who love this and care about this. Yeah. And sometimes it just takes like knowing that question is somewhere down the road to get people to say, you know what, I don't want to be the one caught without an answer.
Yeah.
And then hopefully in that process of them going through that, something else awakens in them. And it's like, well, it's not just about having an answer anymore. Yep. I just want to know that the Lord is working in me.
Yeah.
I want to be able to say, this is where the Lord is growing me. This is what he's teaching me right now. And be able to confidently point to that. The idea of not growing is scary to me, man.
Yeah, dude. 100%.
Yeah. This road is so long that we're on in ministry, if we're fortunate.
Yeah.
I can, at 30, almost 33, I can already see how easy it would be to like tap out and be like, all right, I think I'm done. If you're not diligent and you're not growing.
Right. Totally.
And I want to do this forever
in
some capacity. So you got to grow.
Yeah. Love that. This is so good. Gosh, I can't say this is the best episode, but this is the best episode.
Wisdom from Tyler. I mean, Taylor.
It's on the record, bro.
Oh my God.
Anyways,
that was on purpose.
That was funny. But yeah, man, I'm just really, really grateful for this time. And I'll link your podcast. I've listened to a couple episodes and Appreciate it's great. So if you guys also want to go listen to their podcast, please feel free. Give them a 5-star review. Give them a good review. 5 star.
Yeah, we'll take it.
5 stars. Always 5 stars. Good review on Spotify. You guys are on Spotify or just Apple?
We're on Apple and Spotify. Yep. And we'll be on Amazon soon just because I found out people apparently use that. And
really?
A couple people on our team were like, I really wish you're on Amazon. I said, I didn't even know that existed.
I did it just because.
Go.
We got to get on that.
No, we're on that.
Oh, cool.
We've been on that.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. And so go check it out. And don't forget, we have team night February 28th.
Yes, we do.
Here, 7 p.m. Just like how I almost said Tyler. Dang it, now I'm overthinking it. How Taylor said it, sometimes we can't really express everything to everyone, but a team night is a perfect time to be there. Roger will be there speaking.
Whoa.
Right?
Yeah.
He's gonna
bring the heat.
Bring the heat.
Yeah. So
he's gonna teach everyone how to hold a microphone.
And how to, So bring your
how to scan the room. Everyone gets a quadrant of the room.
Yep.
Bring your note-taking devices. You're gonna want to take a lot of notes. Never forget that.
Hitting all the marks.
Yeah. So, thank you guys. Make sure to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And thanks again, Taylor.
Thank you,
Caleb.
For having me.
Always love having Caleb. We'll see you guys next week. Peace out.
See ya.
Take care.
Bye.
On the cloud.